why do Spurs never take these cup competitions seriously? We're talking about not getting past the 5th round now for the last 5 years. Prior to that, we did make 2 semi-finals, losing to Manchester United and Chelsea. But what is it about these cup competitions that we just keep resting big players? We don't seem to be taking it as seriously as the fans want to see it being taken seriously.
We used to be a cup team.
Exactly. We used to be. I mean, when I was growing up, when I was in school, Spurs have won the FA Cup more times than anyone else, 8 times. And now Arsenal have won more FA Cups than we've ever won since we've last won one. It's absolutely crazy. But Brian, what's your opinion on that one?
3 words. Daniel, Philip, Levy. We all know this. It's a money game now. It's not about the glory and winning the trophies. Like you were saying earlier, I think it's like £2 million if you win the FA Cup. It's priceless to us, priceless to our fans. We saw it with Jose, where one of the rumours after his dismissal were he wanted to rest everyone against Southampton for the Man City game, and Levy said, no, Champions League is still a viable target, so you don't rest players. The one manager that got us to a final recently is the one that cared about. I mean, Poch did this. It's just a theme. It seems to be with the club. You've seen the game of it is about glory has left the stadium. You don't see that about anymore because the game is about profit. And it's just not a viable thing for us. You know for a fact, if Spurs win the FA Cup and get 6th or 7th, the manager will probably lose their job. Yeah. If they get 4th and no trophy, they get rewarded with a new contract. And this is the issue we have. We all know, I've said it all the time, I will take 5th in the FA Cup, I'll take 6th in the FA Cup, I'll take top 10 in the FA Cup over finishing 4th. Even the League Cup, to say we got a trophy, but it's not what the aim is for this club anymore. You know, unfortunately, it's not. People go, oh, here goes Brian with his Levy agenda and Levy bias. It's the truth. 1 trophy in 23 years. Yes, managers are to blame. Yes, players are to blame. But there is a feeling within the club, or there's a philosophy and an ethos where success isn't about winning that silverware and trophies. Because then you don't get Champions League and you can't get the big players. And if you can't get the big, oh, wait a minute, we get Champions League and we don't do it. So for me, this is down to him. This is down to him. But like I said, players and managers aren't excused from it. But we've seen it throughout the years. Like you said, Ben, we won it 8 times in 1991. Arsenal have now won it 14. They've almost doubled us.
Not good enough. Not good enough whatsoever. But Jamie, is it solely to do with money why we don't take these cup competitions seriously? I mean, if we do win the FA Cup, that's a 2 million prize pot. If we win this AC Milan game next week alone, that's 10 million prize pot. Does that say everything you need to know?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, I think Brian kind of said everything there in terms of, yes, the priority is always on getting into that top 4. And obviously that is because of getting that money, of kind of trying to grow the club as well. So, yeah, that's why the priority is there. But look, as a supporter, I think for many years, I'd always kind of taken being in the Champions League and having that experience, having those nights of being there. I wanted that, and I probably would have said I've taken that over an FA Cup, over the League Cup. Obviously, you know, I think growing up, the League Cup and the FA Cup for me had kind of lost its meaning, really. So that's maybe where I've got that different perspective. But I really thought the Champions League nights were very special. But I think this summer, you know, I was so excited to be back in the Champions League. I was so excited to have that opportunity. And then we go and have the summer we did, where it just felt so underwhelming. Like, we just did not take that opportunity of going and attracting Champions League level players, and we just did not capitalise. I felt like we had everything there to go and really kick on, sign players that were going to really improve us, but we just didn't. We got the likes of Clement Lenglet on loan. We got, you know, just players that were not quite good enough to really take us to that next level. And, you know, it almost feels like a waste to go and grow the club because we're just not willing to go and get that level of player that's needed to really kick on and win the big trophies. So Champions League does feel almost irrelevant now for us. It's obviously fantastic having those nights, but look, are we going to get past AC Milan? I don't think so. I think, you know, we're going to probably go out in the round of 16. I don't think we're good enough to compete in that competition, unfortunately. So, you know, what's the point in being in it? So, yeah, it's a really kind of horrible cycle that we're stuck in at the moment. And, yeah, I think Brian kind of got it spot on. It's just the priority is on on getting the top four, and yeah, as fans, we'll want to see that trophy. And I've accepted now that that's where the priorities lie. The priorities are top four over winning those trophies.
Sim, do you feel that the Champions League or European competition has killed domestic football a bit?
In a way, not just the money that is in it, but it's also the prestige, and obviously it's a bigger competition. So you always want, even like Europa League is bigger than an FA Cup or a League Cup because of what it gets you and getting those European trophies. So I think in the way those competitions have grown, I think it's made less important for the FA Cup, of course, naturally. When back in back in the day when the FA Cup was the only game shown on TV, the FA Cup final. And the European Cup was big, but there was less teams in the European Cup as well. It was only the winners. I think it was a Cup Winners' Cup back then. So there wasn't like it is now, this whole league system. So I think with that growing and all the money growing, that's where people want to be, because they know that that's where the money is, and that's how you can really get your team to start competing financially. Is getting that, like, without the Champions League revenue, Tottenham are just nothing in financially. We're not going to be able to compete financially without the Champions League revenue. In our model anyway. So naturally that leads to those priorities.
Financially with the revenue.
Yeah, but at least we can spend spend a bit of money, I guess. But no, we can't compete with City and Chelsea, even with the revenue, that's for sure. But when it comes to how much we can spend, like, we're very reliant on that European revenue. If we win an FA Cup, it won't make a difference to us, unfortunately. And the club, not the fans specifically. But when it comes to why we don't take it seriously, yeah, Brian is absolutely spot on. That the way that we've been under ENIC, the whole model is based on European football. That is the literal how it works. If we don't get European football, the model doesn't work. So the priorities are always going to be, that's what they're going to be judged on. That's what Conte and all the managers are going to be judged on. The only manager who actually took the cup seriously was Mourinho. And what happened? 6 days before a cup final, he was sacked. And you know why he was sacked? Because he was set to rest players for a league game for the final. That's why he was sacked. So that there's any proof that you need that we don't give a crap about these domestic cups. It's not even like we care a bit. We don't care at all. We literally risked a final. We sacked our manager just before our final. A manager who's known for winning finals. We sacked him a few days before a final because he risked one league game.
They put Ryan Mason in charge for that final, by the way.
Yeah. So if that doesn't tell you how much they care about domestic trophies, then I don't know what does. So I think the evidence is there. They couldn't care less about these trophies. And if you're a manager of Tottenham, then why would you care about the trophies when that's not what you're judged on? Mourinho did it for his own, cared about them for his pride, because that's what his whole thing is. He wins a trophy everywhere he goes. That's what he's based his brand on and everything. So of course he's going to take them as seriously as possible. And eventually it actually cost him in a way, taking it seriously, because he would have rested the whole team for a final. But if you're Pochettino, if you're Conte, if you're any other manager, then you're always going to sacrifice these competitions, because that's not the remit. You're employed. You're not employed to win these competitions. You're employed to get top four and get the Champions League. That is the remit of the job. So why would you take it seriously? I can't blame them in a way, because that's not what they're tasked with. They're not tasked with going far in these competitions. That's not what they're judged on. They could go out in the third round every single year as long as they're getting top four. That's all they care about, the ownership.
Any closing comments on this one from you, Jamie?
I just think that Sim's exactly right. I think the mentality and why we're always so poor in this cup competitions, and maybe why, we say we should be good enough, but ultimately I think a lot of football comes down to mentality, and that starts from the top, and that starts from the club saying, right, we want to win this competition this year, but it's just so painfully obvious that is not the case. We all know they want to finish in that top four. So look, I think the reason why we should be good enough to win these competitions, but we're not, is because we do not have the right mentality from the top of the club. The priority is on that top four. And that is exactly why year after year we get knocked out of the competition by teams that we should be beating, because the mentality at the top just is on getting the top four.
Just to add on to what Jamie said, I mean, we all saw last week with Newcastle, the message Eddie Howe put up on the TV boards within the training ground from November, saying this will be 67 years or something since we've won something. Remember, we won. Words to that effect. That was what greeted them every single morning in the training ground. That message saying, this is the Carabao Cup. We want to get to Wembley. We want to win a trophy. We want to win this drought. You won't see that at this club. You won't see that. You won't see anything like that.
What says it all? You know what says it all, Brian? We were in Israel for the pre-season game, right? The pre-season tour.
Yep.
Israel, Spurs Israel, right? They had a podcast with Ledley King put on by the club. Ledley King went to their studios, blah, 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 recorded this podcast. In a comment on the podcast, Ledley King says, this is the year to win trophies. What did the club do? They reviewed the podcast. They made them take that line out.
Yeah.
Yep.
Does that not say
Says it all, doesn't it? Says it all.
I just don't get it.